I never expected that a simple tech support call would change my life, but that's exactly what happened last spring. Hi everyone, I'm Jamie, and today I want to share the story of how I met the love of my life while fixing a Wi-Fi connection. It sounds like something out of a cheesy rom-com, I know, but sometimes reality is more surprising than fiction. I've always been the go-to tech guy among my friends and family. Ever since I was a kid, I had a knack for fixing computers, setting up networks, and troubleshooting pretty much any electronic device. This reputation followed me into adulthood, and by the time I moved into the Parkview apartments in downtown, I had already helped half the building with their various tech problems. But none of those encounters prepared me for the day I got a call from apartment 4B. It was a rainy Saturday afternoon in April. I remember because I had planned to binge-watch the new season of my favorite show, comfortable in my sweatpants with a bowl of popcorn ready to go. That's when my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but living in a big apartment building, I'd gotten used to random calls from neighbors needing help with their printers or smart TVs. Hello. I answered, trying not to sound annoyed that my perfect lazy Saturday was being interrupted. Hi, is this Jamie? The voice on the other end was deep, slightly hesitant, and immediately caught my attention. There was something warm and inviting about it that made me sit up straighter. Yeah, that's me. Who's this? I asked, already reaching for my laptop, assuming this was another tech emergency. I'm Alex from 4B. I hope you don't mind, but Mrs. Rodriguez from 2A gave me your number. She said you're the resident tech wizard. He chuckled nervously. My Wi-Fi is completely dead, and I have this massive work presentation on Monday that I need to finish. I've tried everything I can think of, but nothing's working. There was something in his voice, a mixture of frustration and hope, that made it impossible for me to say no. Plus, I was curious about this Alex from 4B. In the 6 months I'd lived in the building, I'd never met him, which was strange considering how small our apartment community was. No problem, I said, already mentally postponing my date with my TV show. I can come up and take a look. Give me about 20 minutes. You're a lifesaver, seriously, Alex replied, the relief evident in his voice. I'll owe you big time. After hanging up, I found myself spending an embarrassing amount of time deciding what to wear. Why was I suddenly concerned about my appearance for a simple Wi-Fi fix? I told myself it was just professional courtesy, but deep down, I knew there was something about that voice that had piqued my interest. I settled on a clean pair of jeans and a blue button-up shirt that my sister once told me brought out my eyes. I grabbed my toolkit, ran a quick hand through my hair, and headed up to the 4th floor. Standing outside apartment 4B, I took a deep breath before knocking. The door swung open almost immediately, and I found myself face to face with one of the most attractive men I'd ever seen. Alex was tall, probably a few inches over 6 feet, with dark curly hair that looked like he'd been running his hands through it in frustration. He had warm brown eyes, a strong jawline with just the right amount of stubble, and a smile that made my heart do a little flip in my chest. Jamie, he asked, extending his hand. Thanks so much for coming up. I'm desperate here. I shook his hand, trying not to notice how perfectly it fit in mine or how his touch lingered just a second longer than necessary. Happy to help. So, tell me about this Wi-Fi problem while I take a look around. Alex's apartment was a mirror image of mine in layout, but that's where the similarities ended. While my place had the typical bachelor pad vibe with minimal decoration, his was thoughtfully furnished with a mix of modern and vintage pieces. Bookshelves lined one wall, filled with an eclectic mix of titles. A beautiful antique desk sat by the window, where a laptop lay open, surrounded by papers and coffee mugs. Sorry about the mess, Alex said, hurriedly clearing some space. I've been working nonstop on this presentation, and when the internet went out, I kind of lost it. No judgment here, I assured him, setting down my toolkit. My place isn't exactly Better Homes and Gardens material either. So, when did the problems start? As Alex explained his technical woes, I found myself half listening, distracted by the way his hands moved animatedly as he talked, or how his brow furrowed in concentration. I had to mentally shake myself to focus on the actual problem at hand. Let me check your router first, I said, moving toward the corner where the small black box sat blinking erratically. These things can be temperamental sometimes. I knelt down to examine the router, aware that Alex was hovering nearby, watching me work. The usual troubleshooting steps weren't yielding any results. I reset the router, checked all the connections, and even pulled out my phone to test if the issue was with his devices or the network itself. That's weird, I muttered, more to myself than to Alex. The router seems fine, but the signal strength is incredibly weak. Let me try something else. I pulled out my laptop and ran a network diagnostic tool. Do you mind if I move around your apartment a bit? I want to check the signal strength in different areas. Be my guest, Alex said, following me as I walked from the kitchen to the living room, watching the signal strength fluctuate on my screen. This is strange, I said, turning in a slow circle in his living room. The signal seems to drop dramatically in certain spots. It's almost like there's some kind of interference. I continued my investigation, walking around the apartment with my laptop, watching the signal bars rise and fall unpredictably. Alex followed close behind, occasionally offering suggestions or asking questions that showed he wasn't completely tech illiterate, just out of his depth with this particular problem. Wait a minute, I said, stopping abruptly near his couch. Alex nearly bumped into me, and I felt a jolt of electricity at our near collision. The signal just jumped up here. Let me sit down for a second. I sat on the couch, and to my surprise, the Wi-Fi bars on my laptop shot up to full strength. That's bizarre. Come sit here and open your laptop. Let's see if it works for you too. Alex grabbed his computer and sat down next to me, our shoulders touching slightly. The proximity made my heart rate pick up, but I tried to maintain my professional demeanor. Look at that, Alex said excitedly, pointing at his screen. Full bars. How is that possible? I'm not entirely sure, I admitted, trying to think through the possible explanations. It could be that your couch is positioned in the perfect spot to catch the signal. Or maybe there's something in the walls of your apartment that's blocking the signal everywhere else. We both shifted slightly, trying to get comfortable on the couch while keeping our laptops balanced. As we moved, our thighs pressed together briefly, and I felt that same electric jolt from earlier. I glanced at Alex to see if he had noticed, and caught him looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. So, what you're saying is, Alex said slowly, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth, the only place in my apartment where I can reliably use the internet is right here on this couch. I laughed, suddenly aware of the absurdity of the situation. It looks that way, at least until we figure out what's causing the interference. I can try to reposition your router, or maybe get you a signal booster. Or, Alex said, his smile widening, I could just invite you over whenever I need to use the internet. You know, for signal optimization purposes. There was a playfulness in his voice that made me wonder if he was flirting or just being friendly. I decided to test the waters. That could work, I replied, matching his tone. Though it might get a bit crowded on this couch if we're both working. I don't mind if you don't, Alex said, holding my gaze for a beat longer than necessary. And that's how it started, our couch sharing arrangement. What began as a technical necessity quickly evolved into something else entirely. Over the next few weeks, I found myself spending more and more time in apartment 4B, ostensibly to help Alex with his internet issues, but in reality, because I couldn't get enough of his company. We fell into an easy routine. Alex would text me when he needed to do something important online, and I'd head up to his place with my laptop. We'd sit side by side on the couch, working on our respective projects, occasionally breaking the silence with a question or comment. Sometimes our shoulders would touch, or our hands would brush as we reached for something, and each time, that same electric current would run through me. As the days passed, our conversations extended beyond tech talk. I learned that Alex was a graphic designer who worked primarily from home. He had moved to the city about a year ago after ending a long-term relationship that had grown stagnant. He loved old movies, hated cooking but was trying to learn, and had a ridiculous collection of colorful socks that he was oddly proud of. In turn, I told him about my job as a software developer, my close-knit family that lived a few hours away, and my secret passion for writing science fiction stories that I never let anyone read. It was surprising how easy it was to open up to him, how comfortable I felt sharing parts of myself that I usually kept hidden. One evening, about 3 weeks into our arrangement, we were sitting in our usual spots on the couch. I had just helped Alex troubleshoot a printing issue, unrelated to the Wi-Fi, but I didn't mind the excuse to see him. And we had somehow transitioned to watching a movie on his laptop. It was one of those classic films he couldn't believe I'd never seen, and he insisted on educating me. The laptop was balanced between us, and as the movie progressed, I found myself less interested in the plot and more aware of how close Alex was sitting. Our shoulders were pressed together, and when he laughed at something on screen, I could feel the vibration of it through my own body. "Are you even watching?" Alex asked suddenly, pausing the movie and turning to face me. Our faces were closer than I expected, and I could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. "Sorry," I mumbled, feeling heat rise to my cheeks. "I got distracted." "By what?" he asked, his voice softer now, almost a whisper. I could have made up an excuse, said I was thinking about work or remembered something I needed to do. But something in his expression gave me courage. "By you," I admitted, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure he could hear it. For a moment, neither of us moved or spoke. Then, slowly, deliberately, Alex reached out and placed his hand over mine. His touch was warm and reassuring, and I felt something inside me settle. "I've been distracted by you since the moment you knocked on my door," he confessed, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Why do you think I keep finding new tech problems for you to solve?" I laughed, relief and joy bubbling up inside me. "And here I thought it was my exceptional IT skills that kept you calling." "Well, those too," Alex conceded with a grin. "But mostly it was your smile, and the way you scrunch your nose when you're concentrating, and how you always remember how I take my coffee." Without overthinking it, I leaned forward and kissed him. It was gentle at first, tentative, but when Alex responded by threading his fingers through my hair and pulling me closer, the kiss deepened. It felt like everything I hadn't known I was waiting for, comfortable and exciting all at once. When we finally pulled apart, both slightly breathless, Alex rested his forehead against mine. "I've been wanting to do that for weeks," he murmured. "Me too," I admitted. "I just wasn't sure if you were interested or just really desperate for functioning Wi-Fi." Alex laughed, the sound warming me from the inside out. "Both, definitely both. But more the former than the latter." That night marked a shift in our relationship. We still sat together on the couch, laptops open, working side by side. But now there were casual touches, stolen kisses, and a new level of comfort between us. The Wi-Fi issue remained unsolved, but somehow neither of us was in a rush to fix it anymore. As the weeks turned into months, our relationship deepened. We started spending time together outside of Alex's apartment, discovering our shared love for hole-in-the-wall restaurants, weekend hiking trips, and competitive board game nights with friends. I introduced him to my family during a video call, and they immediately adored him, especially when he charmed my usually stoic father with his knowledge of vintage cars. Of course, it wasn't all smooth sailing. About 3 months in, we had our first real fight. I had been stressed about a deadline at work and snapped at Alex over something trivial. Instead of backing down, he called me out on my behavior, and we ended up having a heated argument that resulted in me storming back to my own apartment for the first time in weeks. I spent a miserable night alone, tossing and turning, replaying our argument in my head. By morning, I knew I had overreacted and needed to apologize. I was about to head upstairs when there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Alex standing there, holding 2 cups of coffee and looking as sleep-deprived as I felt. "I'm sorry," we both said simultaneously, then laughed, the tension immediately dissipating. "I shouldn't have pushed when you were clearly stressed," Alex said, handing me a coffee, made exactly how I like it. "And I shouldn't have taken my work frustrations out on you," I replied, stepping aside to let him in. "I missed you last night." "I missed you too," he admitted, pulling me into a hug that felt like coming home. "Our couch was lonely without you." That moment taught us something important about communication and compromise, strengthening our relationship in a way that only working through conflict can. It also made us realize how intertwined our lives had become in such a short time. A few weeks later, as we were once again sitting on our couch, Alex's laptop suddenly disconnected from the Wi-Fi. He frowned, refreshing the page without success. "That's weird," I said, noticing that my own laptop was still connected with full signal strength. "Let me see what's going on." I ran through the usual diagnostics, but everything seemed normal on my end. "Try moving a little closer to me," I suggested, remembering our original discovery about the couch's sweet spot. Alex scooted over until our sides were pressed together, and immediately his Wi-Fi bars jumped back to full strength. We looked at each other and burst out laughing. "You know," Alex said once our laughter had subsided, "I've been thinking about something." "What's that?" I asked, closing my laptop to give him my full attention. This whole apartment is ridiculous. The Wi-Fi only works on this one couch. The heating is temperamental at best, and the neighbors above me sound like they're training for a marathon at 5 a.m. every day. I nodded in agreement, having experienced all these quirks firsthand over the past few months. And your place, Alex continued, has that weird smell in the hallway, a shower that alternates between freezing and scalding with no warning, and a kitchen so small you can barely open the refrigerator door all the way. Are you just listing all the flaws in our living situations? I asked, amused but confused about where this was going. Because if so, you're doing a great job. Alex took a deep breath, suddenly looking nervous. What I'm trying to say is, maybe we should consider finding a new place. Together. Somewhere with reliable Wi-Fi throughout the entire apartment, not just on one piece of furniture. My heart skipped a beat as I processed what he was suggesting. Are you asking me to move in with you? Yes, he said simply, taking my hand in his. I know it's only been a few months, but I've never been more certain about anything. I love you, Jamie. And I think we deserve an apartment where we don't have to share a couch just to check our email. I laughed, feeling a surge of happiness that almost overwhelmed me. I love you too. And yes, I would love to find a place with you. Preferably one with multiple seating options with good Wi-Fi coverage. Alex's face lit up with a smile that made my heart swell. He pulled me into a kiss that was full of promise and possibility, of a future we would build together. 2 months later, we moved into our new apartment across town. It was slightly bigger than either of our old places, with a kitchen we could both fit in comfortably and a living room with enough space for 2 couches. The first thing we did after moving in our furniture was test the Wi-Fi signal in every corner of the apartment. To our delight, it was strong and stable throughout. You know, I said as we collapsed onto our new couch after a long day of unpacking, part of me is going to miss the days when we had to sit pressed together just to get online. Alex smiled, pulling me closer until I was nestled against his side, exactly as we used to sit in his old apartment. We don't need a Wi-Fi excuse anymore, he murmured, pressing a kiss to my temple. But I'm never going to forget that it was a technical problem that brought us together. Best tech support call I ever answered. I agreed, turning to capture his lips with mine. And that's the story of how I went to fix a neighbor's Wi-Fi and ended up finding the love of my life instead. Sometimes, the most unexpected connections turn out to be the strongest. And while I can't promise that everyone's technical difficulties will lead to romance, I can say with certainty that sometimes, the universe has a way of bringing people together in the most unlikely circumstances. As for Alex and me, we're still going strong. He still occasionally asks for my help with tech issues, though I'm pretty sure half the time he knows exactly how to fix the problem himself. And I still pretend to be annoyed when he interrupts my weekend plans, even though there's nothing I'd rather do than spend time with him. Some habits are hard to break, especially when they remind us of how our story began, with a simple call for help and a couch that somehow knew we belonged together before we did. Total _char_count, 18,626.